We found a lot of dinosaur fossils, and with some looking like this, or that, clearly some are better than others. That's why I've created the dinosaur fossil tier list, where I'll be ranking them based on all this stuff, but most importantly, my own personal taste. The first dinosaur we'll be ranking is baby Yingliang. About 70 million years ago, this ostrich-like dinosaur called an oviraptorosaur laid a bunch of eggs. Sadly for them, those eggs never hatched. But lucky for us, they stuck around long enough to become some of the best preserved dinosaur eggs we've ever found. And one egg in particular is so well preserved that it still has a whole embryo inside. That's baby Yingliang. Isn't he pretty cute? Well, this is actually what he looks like, so maybe not as cute. But seriously, this kind of preservation is wild. It tells us a ton of stuff about how dinosaurs hatched and how they connect to modern birds. Before baby Yingliang died, it got into what is called the tuck position, which is still seen in bird embryos today. We found a few other fossils like this, but what makes baby Yingliang so special is that it was further along in development than any other we've ever found. This little guy was probably just a few days away from hatching, which is why this fossil goes in the S tier. The Black Beauty T.rex. There's a lot to love about this fossil. It's an 18-year-old T.rex, making it a young adult at the time of death, but nearly fully grown, sporting a 4.5-foot long head. But the truly unique aspect of this dinosaur is its black coloration, caused by absorbing manganese during fossilization, and makes this fossil uniquely gorgeous. Then there's the whole death pose thing. You see how the neck and tail are curved back? Well, this happens in a lot of dinosaurs, because once they die, rigor mortis sets in, and all those strong muscles contract, causing the whole death pose. But here's the thing, they didn't actually dig it up like this. Paleontologists arranged it that way to make it look cooler, and honestly, I gotta say, it works. But then again, the fossil's really only about 28% complete, but it's still impressive. That's why I'm putting it in B tier. Terrible hands. My favorite thing about this one, hands down, is that for 50 years, this dinosaur was literally just a pair of arms, which is pretty cursed and pretty hilarious. Each arm was about 8 feet long and ended in 3 8-inch claws. Initial observations thought they might have been used for foraging, hunting, or self-defense, but frankly, everything was just speculation. Until 2006, when researchers discovered a more complete skeleton. However, this find would raise as many questions as it answered, because this dinosaur, named Dinocheirus, was truly unusual. It was one of the largest of the ornithomimosaurs, a group of omnivorous theropods that are often called the ostrich mimics, because of their long legs, fast speeds, and light weight. However, Dinocheirus didn't look anything like its relatives, because it developed a bulkier, slower moving body, making it the largest member of its group, reaching lengths of about 35 to 40 feet and weighing somewhere around 6.5 tons. On top of that, for some reason it had a sail-like structure on its back like a Spinosaurus and a duck-like beak similar to a pelican. So while the infamous terrible hands fossil is both hilarious and peculiar, I can only place it in the C tier, while I'll be placing the more complete Dinocheirus in D tier, because it's not as funny. Next, we've got coprolites, which are pieces of fossilized crab. As you might imagine, these are pretty rare because of how fast they decompose, but even still, with so many dinosaurs using the bathroom for so long, we've discovered a decent amount. In fact, one guy, George Franson, has managed to scoop up so many that he holds the Guinness World Record for the largest coprolite collection at 1,277 pieces. And yeah, he just opened the museum where you can actually go and check those out. Now, you might be thinking, who on earth would want to collect fossilized dinosaur crab? But here's the thing, it actually tells us a ton of stuff, like what these dinosaurs ate, how they digested their food, and a bunch of other scientific stuff I don't feel like listing. So yeah, don't sleep on dinosaur poop. It's more important than it sounds. But even with all that, let's be real. This isn't the kind of fossil I'd be showing to my friends. So as cool as it is, I've got to rank these in the F tier. Giant sauropod femurs. No fossils really showcase the insane proportions of dinosaurs quite like these two. The sauropods are the largest land animals to have ever existed, and a big reason we know this is because of these femurs. You see, because they're so large, it's almost impossible for their entire body to fossilize. Think about a whale carcass. Once it dies, you've got all sorts of animals coming from all over the place to feast on it. Same thing would go for a sauropod, so bones could easily be scattered or destroyed. But femurs are one of the strongest bones in the body, allowing them to fossilize in much higher rates. These discoveries a lot of the time are the only ways we can really predict the size and weight of these animals, and the largest we've ever discovered belongs to the Argentinosaurus. Its single femur is as tall as the tallest man alive today at 8 foot 2 inches, which is absolutely insane. Because these fossils are so massive, cool, and allow us to predict the awesome sizes of these creatures, I have to rank them in the A tier. Dinosaur feather with friends. So this find is pretty awesome. Dating back 100 million years ago to the late Cretaceous of Myanmar is a dinosaur feather encased in amber. It likely belongs to a small theropod, but that's not the cool part, because this dinosaur feather features a few tiny inhabitants, the earliest known examples of lice in the fossil record. Prior to this discovery, the earliest evidence of lice only dated back to around 40 million years ago, which means this one fossil has dramatically extended the timeline for these bugs. And it also shows us the interactions between the two, with the lice eating the feathers of the dinosaur. You know, with these animals living so far away, it's always cool to see that at the end of the day, they were just animals who had to deal with annoying bugs like all the rest of us. So while this fossil holds a special place in my heart, it's so small and it's overshadowed by some other finds, which is why I'll be ranking it C tier. Oddly enough, this next fossil dates back to almost the exact same time period and location. If you weren't already convinced dinosaurs had feathers, this fossil will surely do it, because what you see here is a piece of dinosaur tail trapped in amber. When this fossil was found, it had been sanded down and polished, where it was sitting in a marketplace waiting to be sold as jewelry. The seller thought the amber was just full of plant matter, but nope. Turns out it's a dinosaur tail, belonging to an animal no bigger than a sparrow. It can be seen wrapped in a thick coating of feathers that, unlike modern birds, isn't used to aid in flight, but instead was used to regulate body temperature. This is one of the most remarkable fossils ever discovered. And while we do have other evidence of feathers in some dinosaurs, there's nothing like having a 3D snapshot of exactly what this dinosaur would have looked like. That's why I'll be ranking it in the S tier. You know what? I think it's time for a rapid fire round. Sue. This is the most intact adult tyrannosaur. It was 42 feet long and 13 feet tall at the hip and weighed around 7 tons. Its body is covered in damage from fights and infection, and I will rank it S tier. The first dinosaur. This is the earliest named dinosaur, Megalosaurus. When it was found, scientists thought it looked like a quadrupedal lizard, but this is actually what we think it looks like now. D tier. Mummified hadrosaur. This fossil gives an unprecedented glimpse into the anatomy of hadrosaurs, with its skin, muscles, and even the food in its stomach almost perfectly preserved. This is an easy S tier. Okay, even faster now. Big Al, 95% complete Allosaurus, A tier. Carnotaurus, the meat-eating bull. Only a single fossil has been found, A tier. A plain old T.rex tooth. These can range anywhere from 6 to 12 inches long, and I will rank them C tier. Okay, I'm gonna need to slow down now because these fossils are of a theropod and ceratopsian locked in a prehistoric brawl. And yes, you heard that right, I said fossils, because somehow we have 2 of them. Meet the fighting dinosaurs and the dueling dinosaurs. Not exactly the most creative names, but let's roll with it. Both of these fossils show what seem to be animals that died mid-fight. First up, the fighting dinosaurs. This fossil captures a nearly complete Protoceratops tangled up with a velociraptor. These two were in the middle of what you might call a heated argument and were buried alive. But even if they hadn't been swallowed by the earth, the chances either of them would have walked away are pretty slim. Because not only is the velociraptor trapped under the Protoceratops, its forearm is literally being crushed by its beak. Meanwhile, the Protoceratops has a velociraptor's silk claw poised right at its throat, ready to slice a major artery, if it hadn't already. Clearly, no one won this fight, and instead, they've been frozen in combat for eternity. For sheer drama, I'm ranking them S tier. Now we have the dueling dinosaurs, which is basically the Mesozoic Mayweather versus Pacquiao, as this fossil depicts a battle between 2 of the most famous dinosaurs, a Triceratops and a young T-Rex. Actually, it could be a Nanotyrannus or a new species entirely. You're right, but it's probably just a T-Rex. And if it is, it's the most complete T-Rex specimen ever found, with over 98% of its body still intact. The reason we think they were fighting is because of the positioning of the bones, as well as various scratch marks and damage found throughout each of their bodies. However, as most things paleontology, there are a few other theories on how they ended up entangled together. The dinner hypothesis. Pretty much, the Tyrannosaur was lucky enough to come across a dead Triceratops, but unlucky enough to be immediately swallowed by a landslide. Or there's the disaster hypothesis, which is pretty much what it sounds like. Some disaster happened, like a flood, and they both inevitably washed up together. Regardless, getting 2 of the most famous dinosaurs in one find has to deserve S tier. A mysterious tooth in dinosaur bone. At first glance, this might not look like much, but actually, it's a game changer for understanding the fiercest predator to ever walk the earth. What you're looking at is a T-Rex tooth embedded in an adult hadrosaur's tailbone. This is the first definitive evidence that T-Rex was more than just a scavenger. We know this because the bone healed and grew around the tooth, indicating that not only was the hadrosaur alive during the attack, but survived it. And with the bite coming from the tailbone, this suggests that T-Rex might have been a pursuit predator. On our tier list, I will be ranking it A tier. This one isn't a dinosaur, but I gotta throw it on the list because of how ridiculous it is. This is the Magdeburg Unicorn. And no, it's not a real animal. This is just one of the funniest looking fossil reconstructions ever made. It was discovered back in the late 1600s, and at the time, paleontology was completely unknown. So they gave it their best shot, but wow, is this bad. The legs are from a woolly mammoth, the head is from a woolly rhino, and the horn is from a narwhal. I will be giving it S tier. Just kidding, that's definitely going F tier. Our last fossil for today's video is none other than the Boreapelta markmitchellii, which I kind of talked about in my How to Ankylosaurus video if you want to check that out after this. This is the best preserved dinosaur specimen ever on Earth. It mummified after being swept out to sea, then fossilized, keeping its skin, armor, and spikes intact 110 million years after it died. There is truly no other fossil like it, which is why I gotta rank it S+ tier. It's my favorite fossil ever, and there's nothing like looking a dinosaur right in the face. If there's a fossil I didn't show, leave it below, because there's gotta be a million, and maybe we'll add it to the tier list later on. I'm not gonna lie, it was extremely hard for me to rank these. I honestly could have put them all to S tier. Well, maybe not all of them. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and as always, Jehona out.